Welcome to this recording of our VocTech Activate Grant Fund 2026 webinar. The name of our organisation is Ufi VocTech Trust, which we normally shorten to UFI, and I'm Jane Holmes, Associate Director of Grants at UFI. In our webinar, I talk a bit about UFI and tell you more about this particular grant call for about 20 minutes. And then if you were at the actual workshop, we'd go into breakouts for 20 minutes to allow you to talk to a member of the UFI team and ask any questions you might have before we come back into the main room for any final questions and then wrap up. So if you have the opportunity to book into a workshop, please do so. If you haven't already had a look at our eligibility checker on our website, then I suggest you pause this recording and take a look now. It'll give you a lot of context for this presentation and will hopefully help you understand how your idea might fit with this grant call and if there are any areas to which you might need to give a bit more thought before applying. So let's get started. Voc what? VocTech. We support VocTech, vocational technology, digital tools that help people gain and maintain the skills they need for work. We see VocTech as an enabler, supporting better outcomes for learners and enabling learning to happen in new ways, which deliver for learners and for employers. UFI's mission is to harness the power of technology to improve skills for work, opening up access and achieving positive, lasting outcomes for those furthest from opportunity. As a charitable trust, we are quite deliberate about the furthest from opportunity definition of our learner audience. You'll hear me talk about people who have been underserved or overlooked as we move through this presentation. We believe in a future where everyone is included, everyone is skilled, everyone is empowered, and everyone benefits. And as you can see from this slide, we've really started to see the catalytic impact of UFI's work over the past 10 or so years. More than 1 million learners are impacted by the work we fund every year, and we've spent over £38.5 million in grant funding and direct investment so far. So let's talk more about this specific grant call, VocTech Activate Grant Fund 2026. Grants of between £30,000 and £60,000 are available for projects of between 3 and 12 months duration. We do not mark down applications which reasonably request the full £60,000, so do ask for what you need. And all projects must, of course, aim to solve a vocational learning problem to help adults get the skills they need for work. So VocTech Activate is this specific grant call, but what is it? VocTech Activate is grant funding for innovative approaches using digital tools and approaches to help adults gain skills for work. And by adults, we mean anyone over 16 who is available for work. Specifically, it targets new ideas with the potential to transform how adult vocational learning happens. VocTech Activate provides a test bed where new ideas which solve real vocational learning problems can be scoped and tested in a supportive environment. And it's rooted in a real-world understanding of your learners and users and the problems, issues and opportunities in the vocational sector. Now, the next slide is a very text-heavy one, but I think it's important for you to understand what we don't grant fund as well as what we do. So I suggest you pause it and have a good read before we move on. So what kind of ideas are we looking for? We're really interested in big ideas that have the potential to transform vocational learning. We need to understand how you see your idea having a significant impact in the vocational learning market. And by that, we mean learning that will help lots of people gain skills, get jobs, get better jobs, or upskill within their jobs. We're also interested in ideas that have the potential to scale and reach a large number of learners or users in the longer term. If your community of learners or users is relatively small, have a think about how you could make what you plan to produce a wider, more universal offer that others could adapt and adopt. We're interested in products and services that can reach those furthest from opportunity, those not well served by mainstream provision, perhaps those whose training needs are overlooked in a current role, or those who didn't thrive in a classroom environment. We're interested in ideas which are clear in their understanding of and access to a defined learner group or test group of users, with clear evidenced understanding of their challenges. And we're looking for ideas which tackle specific vocational skills gaps with good connections to sectors, employers, and potential employment. And finally, we are deliberately different to other funders. We are about building capacity and long-term relationships. We would like to hear how you will contribute to the wider UF family and what our support will help you achieve. Everything we fund supports our mission to harness the power of technology to improve skills for work, opening up access and achieving positive, lasting outcomes for those furthest from opportunity. And this grant call is focused on the new. It could be the development of innovative tech or the innovative use of existing tech. It could be utilising established technology in a new way or for a new user group where you've identified that that user group has a learning problem that needs addressing. For example, it could mean taking tech currently only deployed in schools or for higher level learners and developing it for use in the workplace for workplace skills. It could be bringing new technology, including cutting edge technologies, to vocational learning problems, wherever they may be, wherever there's a community that's poorly served, from artificial limb technicians to pest controllers and everything in between. And those are things we've grant funded in the past, by the way. We can support ideas for new tech, new markets, new communities of learners, and we're happy to welcome new project teams. The emphasis here is on the new. VocTech Activate has been designed to support innovation, and we're okay with risk. This is about sharing that risk in order to encourage the development of new digital vocational learning tools, enabling organisations like yours to test new ideas and work out the next steps necessary to plan a route to market and to long-term success. So in the workshops, we now have a quick quiz, and I ask people to answer in the chat in which one of these sectors haven't we grant funded a VocTech Activate project. So there are 5 sectors represented here: the leisure industry, aerospace, live events, pharmacy, and trains. So we funded projects in 4 out of 5 of those, and there's one that's missing. I'm not going to tell you which one of those is missing, but if you look in our VocTech directory on our website, the link is there, you'll be able to see all sorts of projects that we have grant funded. And each of them demonstrated an understanding of their learner audience, of why they were overlooked or underserved, of the problems they faced, what other solutions were already available, and how their tech solution could better address their learners' problems. So let's talk about what a good application looks like. Our grant application form takes you through all of these points. Show a clear adult vocational learning issue or problem. We get a lot of applications with a vague problem and an if you fund us to build this, it could solve everything type solution. They often portray a lack of detailed knowledge of learners and their problems, so be clear and specific. Show us that there is a demand for this problem to be solved, not just a need. It can be easy to see the need for a problem to be solved, but you might be surprised how often that need fails to turn into a demand for a product which solves the problem once money becomes involved, particularly. Explain why what you plan to develop is new, supported by evidence of what's already available. Show us that you know your sector, what's already being used, and tell us what it is you plan to develop and why that's new, different, and will solve the problem you've described for your learners better. I'm afraid we do get applications to develop solutions that a quick Google search shows us already exist and are being used, so do make sure that's not you. If you're using AI to search whether solutions already exist, remember that some models are trained on data that's now out of date, so it's worth checking AI with perhaps another AI. Describe the technology and the impact you expect it to have on your vocational learning problem. While you're describing, make sure you explain what you mean by the terminology you use. If something is immersive, for example, is it a flat screen or a headset, headphones and a controller, or is it underwater if it's immersive? Be really clear what you mean. Show us your ambition and your potential to scale, and explain why and how your learner group is not well served by mainstream provision. Be practical, avoid jargon, and keep it simple. There is a word count for each of these questions that is deliberately between 100 and 200 words maximum on our application form, so you do need to be concise and clear. So within the word count, think about your application in terms of the vocational learning problem we are attempting to solve is, we will address this vocational learning need by, our solution is innovative because, our vocational learners will benefit by, and remember to provide evidence, be clear, be practical, and avoid jargon. As I said, many of the applications we get simply aren't clear enough. They may have a good idea, but they have quite vague ambitions. And this lack of clarity gives away sometimes a lack of analysis about the problem, its solution, and where it fits in the ecosystem of existing tools and approaches. So be clear about what problem it is you're trying to solve and really dig into the needs of your learner group to make sure it really is a problem, and that your proposed solution will solve it. Draw us a clear line between your solution and how it will solve the problem your learners face. We do ask a question in the application form about whether you've used AI to help you write your application, and if so, which tool. You won't be assessed on this. We're just curious on the point and are obviously interested in how technologies are being used, given that technology is everything we do. However, as a note of interest or warning, what we've observed is that we can usually tell when an application has been written using AI. What we see is that they are usually superficially plausible. They read very well, but they are often very bland, and they don't reflect the in-depth knowledge of the applicant, of you. We all know that AI works by analysing what the next word is most likely to be, and in that it creates very standard and average sentences. This is a competitive grant process, so my advice to you is don't be average. Make sure your knowledge is obvious and evidenced and your passion shines through. We've developed a policy on applying for our funding using AI which says all these things, and you can find that on our website. If any of you are planning to create AI-based tools, it's obviously important to keep a close eye on the changing AI landscape. The UK government issued a white paper on AI regulation in March 23, which highlights 5 pillars of ethical AI use. If you're into AI, you're probably already all over this, but those pillars and their mitigations are outlined here, and we will expect any application involving AI to explicitly reference these. And if you are planning to create an AI-based tool, please make sure you explain how the AI is benefiting your learners or users. If you just say you're creating an AI-powered platform, for example, we won't be any the wiser about what role the AI will be playing and why that's important for and relevant to your learners or users. We need to be able to understand what difference the AI is making and how that benefits your learners or users. Separately, if you are using AI as a development tool, you can now use a variety of vibe coding platforms to really rapidly develop and test a prototype. If you're going down that route, or if you decided not to go down that route, it would be really useful if you could briefly explain why in each case in the technology section of the application form. And it's even more important to do your research on what's already out there as it's moving so fast. And of course, anything you do that uses AI, must be done ethically. So there are just a few more slides now on how to apply. So it's an online application process. You open an account at ufi.co.uk/myufi, and you use that account to access, complete, save, and submit your application. It's a two-stage application process with a review point at each stage. And if you are successful at stage 1, you will be invited to continue to stage 2. Assessment at each stage is undertaken by an external expert panel, and final funding decisions are made by our UFI Board of Trustees. So if you go onto our website, if you're looking for My UFI, you go onto the website and you click on More at the top right, and then a bigger menu will open up. And on the right-hand side is our VocTech directory, which I mentioned earlier has all the projects that we've previously grant funded in it. And you'll see underneath that the My UFI link. And if you click on that, you'll be able to log into the portal to make your application. And now some practical tips. Please don't use Safari. The Salesforce-based system just doesn't work properly with it. Our application system shows you which page you are on. You can see the 2 green ticks, which means that I've completed pages 1 and 2, which is some information about you and your organisation. And I'm on page 3 at the moment, which is the name of your project. It's a maximum of 80 characters for the name of your project. You'll get an error message if you try and go above that. You'll see at the bottom right, there is a Save and Continue button. Once you've got to this stage, the system will create your application and save the information you input as you go along. So you can log out and log back in to go back to your application at any point. Page 8 is where it looks different at the bottom right. This is where you save and submit your application. Please don't submit until you are absolutely sure this is your final version. Everything else will have been saved up to this point, so you can go back to it at any time. Once you've hit save and submit, you won't be able to change it. When you submit, there's a tick box where you agree to our terms and conditions if you're awarded a grant. There's a link to them at that point, and they're available on our website at any time too. Just search for terms and conditions. Here's the whole timetable. The deadline for submissions of stage 1 applications is 5 o'clock on Tuesday, the 3rd of February. We do not accept late applications. If you experience technical problems while completing or submitting your application, you must tell us as soon as possible via info@ufi.co.uk. Stage 1 applicants will be advised at the end of February whether they have been successful and will be invited to submit their Stage 2 application. Stage 2 includes a set of questions which are individual to your unique application and will allow us to ask you to clarify or strengthen specific areas of your proposal. The deadline for submission of Stage 2 applications is 5 o'clock on Tuesday, the 24th of March. UFI's Board of Trustees will reach final decisions on funding in the middle of May. So we've got Easter in the middle of there. And after we let you know if you've been successful, there will be a short period of due diligence before contracting starts. And we'll tell you more about that if you get through to Stage 2. And finally, a note about our charitable status. As a charity itself, UFI must ensure that any grant given to any organisation that is not also a charity demonstrates public benefit. This means being able to see evidence of how the proposed approach will benefit learners, how the community of learners has been defined, and the total size of the group the project could reach. Applicants must always explain clearly why they need UFI funding to support their project and how UFI's charitable funding will make a difference. Finally, we need to make sure that our funding is not more than is necessary to deliver the project and is not replacing private funding. The questions we ask in our application forms help us understand how your proposal can have a beneficial public outcome, both immediately and in the longer term. Now, if we were in the actual workshop, we'd be moving into breakout rooms now where you'd have time to meet other people interested in the VocTech space, learn more about UFI and talk to a member of the UFI team and ask any questions you have. And then we would move back into the main room for us to answer your questions in real time. But as it's a recording, I'll go on to a summary that grants of between £30,000 and £60,000 for projects lasting 3 to 12 months are available to test early stage ideas for how digital tech can help people obtain skills for work. Do have a look at our website. You can read our grant fund guidance, have another look at the eligibility checker. We've got a lot of top tips in there and our grant terms and conditions, as well as our frequently asked questions. You apply on our website via the My UFI link, and the closing date for applications is 5 o'clock on the 3rd of February, and we do not accept late applications. My top tip is be clear. Perhaps get someone unfamiliar with what you want to do to read your draft application. It's so hard for our external assessors to properly assess your application if they can't understand what it is you plan to do. So I hope that's been useful, and I look forward to seeing some brilliant applications. Thank you.